Someone asked me, should I be buying? And the answer is, holy yes, you should be buying. The inventory is through the roof right now. There's tons of opportunity on the market. You guys know the rates are way down compared to what we've seen over the last few years. So the inventory's there. The rates are somewhat good. So it's a great time to buy.
You're listening to the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast, your go-to source for all things Canadian real estate. And now, here are your hosts, Paul Stevenson and David Warren. Hello and welcome back to the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast. My name is Paul Stevenson. I'm joined, as always, by David Warren, and we're here to bring you the latest and greatest in Canadian real estate. We have an amazing guest today, but before we bring him in, we just want to remind everyone, if you ever have questions about real estate, mortgages, you're out shopping, you're selling, give us a call. Dave and I are here to help. And we just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors as well. Guertin, Poirier, Avocates Lawyers, Big Insurance in Westboro, and CENTUM. Thank you for your support. Thank you everyone for listening. David, how you doing? What's going on?
I'm good. Coming off a long weekend, which was nice.
This is the time of year it picks up. Hey, just so we might as well start the show by pumping the market. That's what we do here. You know, we just like to tell everyone how great the market's doing. No, but the long weekend in May, it's always kind of Easter is like the first thing that gets the engine going. Long weekend in May, that's when people are actually out shopping. I can't tell you how many realtors I got messages from Sunday night, Monday morning. Hey, we just saw this home. We're putting in this offer. How are things going? We have an expert here with us, though, today, Dave, and I'm interested to hear what he's seeing. Paul Rushforth from Paul Rushforth Real Estate, pro, expert, genius, guru. Welcome, Paul. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I wouldn't go as far as saying, all the things you did, but thank you so much for saying them. I will take them, and thanks for having me on the show. It's a great informative show, and I'm happy to give some content.
So Paul, you've been how long have you been in real estate? 20 years?
Yeah, 20. I was reminded that it's about 21, so it doesn't some days it feels like it, but yeah, I've been at about 21 years in real estate. Started in a small mom and pop shop, into realty, jumped over to Keller Williams for a few years, and then started my own brokerage in April 2011, Paul Rushforth Real Estate.
That's awesome. Yeah, so Dave and I got in 2013, so we were rookies when you were already a veteran. Now looking at this spring market and looking at 2025 as a whole, how would you compare this to past years, and what are you and your team seeing right now in the market?
Well, what's funny, Paul, is, and Dave, like, a lot of people I see, their response to me is always like, "Ooh, tough market, eh? Ooh, this is a really bad market, eh? Ooh, nothing selling, eh?" And I'm like, what market are you looking at? I mean, the Ottawa real estate market right now, number of sales is down 5.4%, which signifies that it might be a little bit of a tougher market. Average sale price is up 1.1%. So it's still climbing a little bit. But saying that, here's the key to determining whether this is a good market or not. First of all, at the start of the year, I almost felt a little bit slimy when someone said, "Hey, should I be buying?" And I'm like, well, I'd love to say yes, but the truth is, if it's right for your family, then it was a great time to buy. We're very similar to a 2017 market when it comes to interest rates, when it comes to inventory on the market. We saw what happened after 2017. The market skyrocketed. As of right now, someone asked me, should I be buying? And the answer is, holy yes, you should be buying. The inventory is through the roof right now. There's tons of opportunity on the market. You guys know the rates are, they're not at historical lows like we saw, but they are way down compared to what we've seen over the last few years. And so it's still healthy where we are right now. And we're expecting them, as you know, to come down a little bit more, hopefully. So the inventory's there. The rates are somewhat good. So it's a great time to buy. Well, if it's a great time to buy, then it must be a really tough time to sell. And the truth is if your home shows well and it's priced well, it'll actually sell quick, and sometimes in multiple offers. The homes that are not selling are the homes that are trying to hit a home run on price. They're overpricing them. They don't show well. They're not doing the work to make them look really, really nice for the market. And those are the homes that are struggling to sell. We're seeing the inventory and the months on market of homes that don't show well are creeping up. The homes that do show well and are priced well, they're selling in weeks, like very, very fast sales. So I would say if someone said, is this a good market? On a scale of 1 to 10, I believe we're in about a 6.5 to a 7 when it comes to good markets. So yes, I think we are in a good market.
It's almost like you listened to last week's episode, because that's exactly what we've been saying the last couple, for the last while of exactly that. Places that show well, that are staged well, that are presented well and priced properly, are moving, and the days on market is reflective of that. We talked about last week. You've got over 4 months of inventory. However, you've got days on market. I think it's at down to 18 or 19 days,
Yeah.
18 days on market, which obviously signifies that, yes, you've got a lot of inventory, but you got half that is moving extremely quickly, like you mentioned, of, in some cases, multiple offers, and then the other half that's sitting for an extended period of time. But if they were more aggressively priced or staged, they would likely be moving a lot quicker as well.
One thing that we are finding too is that, we went through that crazy time going through COVID where the prices just skyrocketed and homes were going 100, 200 over asking price, which was tough in your guys' business because you had to put your
Mhm.
neck on the line for financing and people were in no conditions. And so it was really, really that tough at that time. And then we saw the market soften. But the view of the consumers and the sellers out there was that, oh, my neighbor sold last year for 800, so mine must be 800. And I'm like, well, the market's softened, so really it's not. And so we saw a lot of sellers who were very unrealistic. It was hard to get them to price their home properly. This is what led to where we are right now. But the transition is the mindset now of sellers are that the market is a little bit softer, are more realistic on price now. We don't have to sell the sellers as much on pricing their home anymore because they're a little bit more educated. They know what's happening in the market. And so when we say your house is worth X, they're like, yeah, I see, I see. But the worst thing they always say is that, yeah, but during COVID, I might have got X times 10. And I'm like, sure, but you also had to buy X times 10. Like you had to buy higher too. So we're in a really, really solid market, a typical Ottawa market. I mean, like I said, we've seen the average sale price go up 1.1%, which is a typical Ottawa market. I mean, between 2 and 5% is a solid market. We're at 1.1, so we're in a typical Ottawa market. I don't know why people out there think we're in a tough market because we're not in a tough market. The only time we're in a tough market is if your house is a dog and you've tried to overprice it. Then yes, we're in a tough market.
Yeah. And I think there's some, some realtors that are talking about it being a tough market because they're not having a great year for whatever reason. And so they're kind of, passing along that narrative. But to your point, that there is still quite a lot of, you know, transactions and volume, shifting hands. And obviously more to come. And I think there is still a lot of people. I'm sure your database with your team is thousands long, of people waiting on the sidelines, waiting for that next interest rate drop, it seems, but then they kind of are still unsure whether to get into it. And, we're kind of seeing with even today's inflation numbers coming out of it being just above expectations, but still coming in at 1.7, which kind of the likelihood is that's going to be a driver. Obviously, we still got a little bit of time before the June announcement, but that's, kind of going to increase those odds of a rate drop. Do you foresee, based on the conversations that you and your team are having, that with a further rate drop as we come into the summer, that there's going to be a significant pickup of activity? Or
100%. Our market is driven right now on rate drops.
Mhm.
We see the optimism when we get a rate drop. We see the stagnant when we don't get a rate drop. I mean, the last one where they remained flat and they didn't drop the rates, it almost like it popped like a little pin in the market where it was kind of like people just like, oh, it was
Mhm.
probably only going to be if it did go down, it was only going to be a quarter point anyways. And so, I do think that people sort of held on a little bit. We are seeing people say, well, you know what, I'm just going to wait until the next rate drop, which is a huge mistake. I do believe in June we will get that quarter point, hopefully. I mean, as of right now, what the numbers are saying, quarter point. And I think that will bring the optimism out. We saw a bit of a delayed spring. Our April market was tough because we had not only was, Trump going hard with the tariffs, but we had an election. We know during election time, things kind of go a little bit stale and slow. We saw that. So April was a little bit tougher. The market, the city numbers, the number of sales was down 11.2%, which shows you that was a tough April. May has picked up to be stronger. When the numbers come out in May, I think they're going to be quite strong for the Ottawa Real Estate Board. And then when we do get that drop, if we get that drop in June, I do think that we're going to have a strong summer, stronger than normal because we've had a delayed spring. So coupled with that rate drop, I think, we're going to have buyers that are sitting on the fence that are just going to come out. I mean, prices are there. I think if you're waiting, you're making a mistake. If you're waiting for more rates to drop, I think what's going to happen is that inventory is going to get absorbed and the
Uh-huh.
prices are going to go up. So I
Yeah.
would get in sooner than later while there's tons of inventory and prices are somewhat soft compared to what we've seen over the last 3, 4 years.
Here's the thing too with rates, and we're having these conversations every day now. For let's say a 5-year fixed, you're looking in the low fours. Let's just say 4.19 as a round number. The variable rate right now for that same product is prime minus, let's say 0.65. So you're at 4.3. If we see that quarter point drop, now you're looking at variable rates lower than fixed, sitting around 4%, 4.05, assuming there's no discount on the discount. So I mean that's very interesting because I've found, at least historically, when the variable rates are more aggressive, that you're seeing maybe people that are willing to take on a bit more risk, like the investors and so on, they tend to get back into the market as well. So I think if we do see that quarter point drop in June, then we're going to see a lot of those retail investors, or people that are looking for that first investment property, come back to the market. And we've seen those condo and kind of starter homes a bit stagnant, right, for prices over the last couple of years. So I think that will drive that market up as well, which is that entry level home. So if those investors are coming back in, we're seeing those entry level prices increase as well, from maybe 450, 550 to 650. That's going to push more people, those first time home buyers, further out of the market. So like you said, Paul, I think waiting right now, we've been hearing people say they're waiting on the sidelines for the last 2, 3 years, and there is a breaking point. When that is, we don't know, but I think it's one of the breaking points. Now, this would be maybe the second of those breaking points where if you miss this wind, like, you may be priced out.
You said it exactly. I mean, the segment of the market as our rates were going through the roof and, coming down, but still way higher than they've been over, historically over the last, decade. We saw the hardest hit segment of the market was first time home buyers and investors. In fact, that makes up almost 50% of our market is first-time home buyers and investors, and it dried right up because investors were underwater. There was no way they were buying an investment property and cash flow positive. Now they were underwater big time. So do you call that an investment when you're underwater? Not really. Now we're getting to the point with rates coming down, prices somewhat flat, an investor can now get in and be cash flow positive. So we're starting to see investors come back. We're starting to see first time home buyers come back because now they can afford that product. When the first time home buyer product was a townhome at 750,000, first time home buyers couldn't get in. Now you can get a nice townhome for in the fives and low sixes, and the rates have softened. We're now seeing the first time home buyers come back. So I think as rates come down a little bit more, we're going to get more first time home buyers. We're going to get more investors. Like I mentioned, 50% of the market's going to start absorbing all that product. When the supply gets absorbed, what happens to the demand and the price? It goes up. So if you're sitting on the sideline thinking, oh, I'll just wait for rates to come down and then I'll get involved. Well, guess what? That $600,000 townhome is now 650, 670. Why don't get it right now while it's only 600? So 100% agree with you there, Paul. Get in while you
The th
can.
I think it's counterintuitive for individuals as well that kind of use that, phrase of waiting for the next rate drop to see, before making a decision. Well, uh, take a variable rate, an adjustable rate mortgage then. As that rate comes down, so will your rate and your payments. And so, and you can convert that adjustable rate mortgage to a fixed at any time. So if your plan is that you're gonna wait for rates to come down before buying, well, so are others. And like you said, that demand is gonna increase. Supply gets eaten up, drives up prices. Instead, you could buy now, expecting or anticipating a rate drop anyways, and still take advantage of that and be ahead of the game instead of competing with all these others while you still have a lot of inventory on the market to choose from.
Maybe the one I 100% agree with you, but guess what? The one thing that I realize is that the lack of information in the market on the mortgage side is, and that's why I'm glad you guys do this show because when you talk about adjustable rate mortgage, I would venture to guess, and I may be speaking out of turn, that a large percentage of real estate agents don't even know what that means. So if they don't know what that means, what do the consumers know? So, they just think, oh, well, my only product is a 5-year fix because that's what my bank told me is what I can go into. But people don't realize, yeah, you take one of those adjustable rate mortgages, when the rates come down, you come down. So I think getting that education out there, allowing consumers to say, okay, so I can get in with today's prices and today's rates, but when the rates come down, I go down. And I think getting that education process out there is going to be very, very important to allow people to get back into this market. Because I'm actually shocked. I mean, how many people aren't educated on what's going on in the real estate market, and they're not educated on what's going on in the different types of mortgages that you can get to play into your hand. And I'm glad you guys are doing this show, because I know it's an education based show, and that's what we need out there, because that's a great point.
Are you thinking of buying or selling a residential property? Relationships are at the heart of every real estate transaction. At Guertin, Poirier, Avocates, Lawyers, we love to bring residential buyers, sellers, agents, lenders, mortgage brokers, and the law together to close the deal for you. For an effortless client experience that opens doors, call us at 613-744-4488 or visit our website at guertinpoirierlaw.ca. Let's get to the heart of your deal. Are you trying to grow your mortgage business? CENTUM has the tools and support to help you take your business to the next level. Get access to everything from free unlimited custom marketing to daily direct pay. Find out what your business can do with CENTUM. Learn more at joincentum.ca. Your home is one of your biggest investments, and the team at Big Westboro can help you protect it. Our expert brokers will find the perfect coverage to keep your home and belongings safe. Call 613-239-5792 or visit thebig.ca/Westboro for a free quote. Think big. Protect what matters most.
How much of that, when you mention of other realtors out there, not knowing a lot of terminology or products, when it comes to mortgages, and obviously there's that old adage of just kind of stay in your lane, but you also need to know what the other lane beside you is doing, so that you're not crashing. So,
Yeah,
what do you do with your team in that regard?
Hunter, I'm glad you asked that question, because there are, I mean, let me, I was kind of like tongue in cheek joking when I said other realtors, but
No,
listen,
no, but it's true. I
Ottawa,
deal with it all the
it
time.
is, it is true. I mean, Ottawa has some phenomenal realtors, and I can only comment on what I do with my team, to be honest with you. And we consider ourselves kind of a small, poor version of what you guys are. So I have to know what people's plans are in order to suggest what I think would be their best avenue to go. And then we get them in touch with you guys, and you guys either correct us or agree with us. But we have to be a sort of a poor version of what you guys are. I need to know what their plans are. Is this a long term play? Is this a short term play? Is it better to be in a fixed or a variable? Are you buying this for investment, not investment? So we have to know. And so one thing that I do with my team is I need to have them educated on everything from what's going on in the Ottawa real estate market to what different products they can get in the mortgage market to, just about everything, to make sure they're educated. Because one thing that we are is we're knowledge brokers. That's what we are, is we're knowledge brokers. And I have to give you guys the most knowledge to make the most informed decision. And if I don't know anything, I can't always say, you have to talk to Paul or Dave when it comes to mortgages. A lot of people, they'll have a relationship with a bank or somebody else and this, that, and they get their information there. Well, just like every industry, it may not be the best information for the consumer, but it might be the best information for that bank. So I like to let them know, like, this is what you should be looking for. But once you talk to Paul and Dave, they'll reassure you that it is exactly what you should be looking for. So I think knowing your industry in a small way needs to be very important for all realtors. And that's what I train my team on, is knowing your business as well as ours.
Yeah, that's kind of the same for us. And Dave, I'm sure you deal with this with your agents as well. Like we're kind of the pre-realtor educator on that side too. Like this is how you're going to submit your offer. This is how many days for conditions we need on our side. Condo status certificate's probably going to take 10 days. Like, just kind of understand and give them a sip of the fire hose as to like what to expect. And that also makes it easier when you're working with a team of people. Like if I don't know the realtor they're working with, that realtor isn't communicative, they're not sending me the documents on time. It doesn't happen often, but it's the same thing with a bad mortgage broker. Like if they're not communicating the pre-approval amount, idiosyncrasies with that file that might cause problems or might create delays in funding or what have you. Like it's important for everyone to be on the same page. And it makes our job more difficult when no one's communicating. So same thing. We try to educate them a little bit about like, here's what to expect. Talk to Paul and his team, and they'll run you through the process step by step, so you feel comfortable and so on. So there is kind of like you have to kind of be a jack of all trades, but also stay in your lane. You want to be an expert in what you know, but you also need to understand the process, the market, what's happening in different areas, and that's why we love having people like yourself on who have been through all this and also coach, because you're able to tell us in real time what's happening in the market. And it's great to hear from different realtors because everyone has a different perspective on what's happening in the market. And with your experience, having so many years of experience, the ups and downs, rates going up and down, prices going up and down, this is where there's huge value in you sharing your insights. We do have a lot of agents, both realtors and mortgage agents, who listen to the show. So, and this is something we talked about recently. We had a realtor on who was talking about a lot of agents are not renewing their licenses. What have you seen kind of in your microcosm of your team? Like, are you seeing a lot of agents still coming into the market, approaching you to join your team? Or are you seeing agents kind of slowly leave the market as maybe they're not having the success that they were hoping for?
Yeah, and listen, the real estate market's competitive. It's hard. We've gone through some tough times. I know during COVID, we saw the realtor numbers in Ottawa go from like 3,000 to 4,000 because wow, what an easy job, and they're all billionaires. Like so everyone thought it was easy money, and they get into the business and they realize, wow, this is hard. This is not easy. I do think that the only model that works in real estate is the team model. That's my personal opinion, because I do believe it's really hard to be a jack of all trades. Like, how do you advertise, market, list properties, put signs on the like lock boxes, websites, negotiations? How do you do all that by yourself and be proficient in all that? Whereas, I employ a number of people to take a lot of that off your plate. So all you have to do is go out and sell properties. That's your sole job. So we still have, especially in tough markets, get a lot of people looking to join our team. I'm very, very picky though. You have to be a great culture fit. You have to, you could be an absolute rock star. And if you're just not the culture fit for my team, I turn you down. Just because I want a nice, close knit team and people. And our job is, listen, we are serving the community. That's what our job is. And we love doing what we're doing, serving the community. But in a tough market, yeah, we're going to see realtors who will come and go. They will leave the market because it is tough. And I think that the biggest thing that a realtor can do is educate yourself. I believe a lot of my success has come from just being a sponge. I used to, from day one, I was at conferences and I was learning off people. I didn't care if you were selling 7 homes or 700 homes. You were going to teach me something, and I was going to absorb it. And then implementation, I was going to implement it hard. Paul, one of the reasons we are a little bit delayed today is because I was with my real estate coach. And someone's like, "What? You guys are selling like 700 homes. What do you need a coach for?" Well, guess what? Tiger Woods has a coach. Wayne Gretzky has a coach. All these superstars have coaches. And what a coach will do is keep you accountable, keep you on track, hold your hand through things, educate you on what's going on. And that's one thing that I believe in is coaching, learning. I go on probably 3, 4, 5 conferences a year. I'm a sponge. I come home, I implement things. And I think the biggest problem with our industry and your industry is people trying to do it on their own. Success comes from people surrounding yourself with the right people. And I'm just the only thing that I've done better than a lot of people is I've surrounded myself with people that are way smarter than me. that's it. That's what I've done. So getting yourself a coach, a good team around you, and educating yourself. And I don't care what industry you're in, your industry, my industry. If we don't have mentors and people guiding us and keeping us accountable, you're not going to succeed. And that's what mentorship and coaching and being a sponge for education does for you.
I think it's so vitally important to have somebody to hold you accountable. Like you mentioned, you can go to all the conferences you want. You can have a coach if as many coaches as you want, but unless you're accountable to that individual and you're holding yourself accountable and implementing what you're learning, it's just a waste of time and money. But people, you've been successful because you've implemented what you've learned as well, and what you pick up at these other conferences, where the room might be full of the same people from Ottawa, but they're not actually taking the time implementing, or they don't have the team around them to be able to implement it because they are, like you said, a jack of all trades where they're pulled in so many different directions. They're not able to focus and kind of focus on their business and their core competencies as opposed to trying to do everything.
That's one of the best things I ever did is I bring my management team with me to every conference. So my conferences are everywhere from, San Diego to Dallas to Vegas so like it's not cheap. It's expensive where I'm going for these conferences, but I bring my management team, Angie and Jocelyn, with me everywhere. And the reason is because when we hear an idea, we want it implemented. And for me to come home and say, "Hey, Jocelyn, listen what I learned today. I learned about blah, 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 blah." She's like, "What? I don't get it." But if she's in the room, she's like, "Oh, yes, now I get it." So there's times where we're in a room and we're at a conference and I look over at Jocelyn and I'm like, "That is a great idea. We should have that implemented." She's like, "Just did it. It's already implemented." Like she was on her phone implementing the idea and so that is worth its weight in gold. So I mean, a lot of times, people going by themselves to conferences is great. Learning and going to these nice places and great hotels and eating these great meals is awesome. But if you go to a conference and you don't implement ideas, shame on you. Shame on you. So implementation is key. Thirst for knowledge is key. And you look at some of the successful real estate agents in our industry, and you look at some of the successful mortgage brokers in our industry, and what is their secret? They've learned from the best. That's what it is. You're not. I didn't invent the wheel. I just learned and implemented it from the best.
Yeah, and our industry is always shifting too. I mean, we have great tools, but now, especially with the advent of AI and technology increasing all the time, like there's a lot of tools you can use that don't take away from the client's experience, but actually enhance it in the sense that you have more time to be more present with the clients because some of that stuff in the background is being automated and being, moved forward without you necessarily needing to do it. But in our industry, like every single person you talk to, every single file Dave and I review, they're all different. They all have different nuances. There's always something new that you're going to see that you weren't prepared for. And the agents that are successful are the ones that take that experience and then implement it on the next one to make sure that it keeps getting smoother and smoother and smoother over time instead of having constant derailment, right? On every file. Like, well, I don't understand this. What am I going to do? It's kind of, what am I going to do? Here's the solution. And now let's make sure that next time we see that, we're ready to rock, you know?
So take a look at what you're doing right now, guys. Like, how easy is it for someone to have their own podcast? We're literally just talking to each other into a screen. Like it's fairly easy. Yet, how many mortgage brokers have a podcast, right? Like, you guys are implementing an idea and your show is all content and information driven. But guess what? Realtors out there are like, yeah, I'm really looking for a good mortgage broker. How about the guys who have the podcast? The guys who are bringing information to the market, they seem like a great people to go to because they're interviewing agents, mortgage brokers. They're learning at the same time as they're growing. Like I think what you guys are doing is amazing. It's great. You're information driven and getting that information out there to consumers.
I think it's, I appreciate that, and same sentiment for yourself. I mean, you obviously have a radio show every weekend that you've been doing now for how many years now?
I think it's
10?
18 or 19 years.
18?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
okay.
you,
So
you guys weren't even thinking of
well,
mortgages when I
yeah,
started
yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's same idea, right? It's helping you stay attuned with the market. You're constantly trying to provide education and information to the public. And I think the biggest thing that we can do, and whether that's somebody using our services or not, is to inform themselves so that they're making a better decision with whomever they're deciding to use for that, as a mortgage professional or as a realtor, whatever it may be, so that they're not going into it eyes wide shut. And because it becomes a detriment to everyone. When you've got people that aren't informed, it's actually easier and a better transaction or a better experience when people are informed. When you're talking the public, when you're talking, they're informed of what is going on in the mortgage industry and the real estate industry. It helps them to kind of create that path and that blueprint moving forward of what their decision is going to be a lot clearer and easier, and they're able to be successful as well of knowing their goals better, knowing what products, like we talked about before, that they've seen ARM and fixed, things like that. And I think I think really in that people do themselves a disservice as they're getting into the market. First-time home buyers, repeat buyers, investors have not taken the time to educate themselves fully.
Yeah, and listen, it's always easier. I'll speak for real estate agents. It's always easier dealing with educated mortgage brokers like yourselves when a deal. I mean, you know how many times I'm like, so sorry. Who's your mortgage broker? They don't want to use my people. They want to use their own, which is fine. They're like, oh, I'm you dealing with so and so from so and so. I'm like, okay, great. I've called them like 17 times trying to get updates, and like we're trying to do a professional transaction, your biggest transaction of your life, and I can't even get a hold of your mortgage broker or your banker. So, dealing with the right people when you're making your largest investment is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. No, agreed. Now before we kind of wrap up here, I'm curious to get your predictions for the remainder of the year. Where do you see price points being at? We talked about it being just over 1% increase in gain, down 5% in sales. How do you think being that you mentioned at the beginning of the show that you're expecting the summer to pick up and kind of that late spring becomes more of a summer. August is usually slow, but like you mentioned, it's likely to pick up. Where do you see the remainder of the year going? Where do you think we'll end off come December 31st? Um, once kind of everything's averaged out.
I think our number of sales will be down this year, um, just a little bit. I think our average sale price will increase. I think activity in the summer is going to be probably a little bit more. Well, it's probably going to be a stronger summer than we've had in a long time. I think our delay in our spring will probably lead into our summer, so it's going to be a strong summer. So people want to pick up business. It's a great time to work the summer months. I think we're going to have a fairly strong fall. And then I really do believe that with the rates coming down, with inventory slowly getting absorbed, I think the demand is always going to be there, but I think supply is going to come down. And so I think there's going to be a surge in the average sale price potentially by the end of next year going into 2026. I think the average sale price will increase. So if you're sitting on the fence, you're not thinking it's time to buy now because you're waiting for prices to come down or rates to come down. I think you need to get in the market sooner than later because I do believe our average sale price will. I mean, it's not going to skyrocket like what we saw during COVID, but it will aggressively go up, in my opinion. We're going to have a few really strong years. Um, and look at what we've done in the last 5, 6 years. I mean, we've weathered the storm of COVID. We've weathered tornadoes going through a lot of parts of Ottawa. We're now weathering tariffs. We've weathered rates going through the roof with like 8 or 9 increases in a row or whatever it was. We've seen prices drop drastically in the Ottawa real estate market. We've weathered some storms. I do believe that the storms are slowly are not going away, just so you know. They're here to stay. I mean, as long as Trump's in power, there's going to be something going on in the world. And I think that we are going to weather that. I think we're going to have we still have a strong amount of immigrants coming to Canada. 450,000 immigrants coming to Canada, a good chunk coming to Toronto and Ottawa. So we need to get shovels in the ground. I think builders are going to build at a feverish pace. I do, they've been saying it for years. I do hope that maybe now the shovels get in the ground a little bit easier. We're still going to get, more supply from these builders, but we have a lot of pent up demand on buyers. We have, buyers who are sitting on the sideline. So we are going to have a very strong summer, end of 2025, leading into a really good 2026 is what I believe is going to happen in the Ottawa real estate market. And listen, I don't have a crystal ball, but when it comes to education and knowing what's happening in the market, I pride myself on having a lot of education and knowing metrics and numbers, and this is what I believe is going to happen.
Is there a kind of to kind of piggyback off that? And we asked this of a couple other realtors recently. Are there areas in the city that you see as being a great opportunity for buyers? Whether
Yes.
that and what areas are those, and what areas are you finding that are overheated as far as that product just isn't sitting on the market?
So the toughest areas to buy in right now are the older areas that don't have a lot of new home building. And the reason is because there's not as much supply. If you're looking in some of the suburbia areas where there's a lot of new home building going on, you look at the Orleans, the Canadas, the Barhavens, the Riverside South, the Finley Creeks, there's a lot of building going on. So there's a lot more competition. So I think you're probably going to, now saying that, you have a lot more people buying out there too, right? So there's more people buying out in the suburbias, but a lot more competition. So I think in the suburbia areas, I think you might see more sales, but you might see the price increase a little bit slower than some of the older areas. Like, I keep an eye on an area here in Orleans where I am called Chapel Hill. And Chapel Hill doesn't have a lot of inventory. They have no new home builders in the area. When a house hits the market, it usually sells. So areas like that, where there's not a lot of new home building, we will see price acceleration pretty good in those areas. Then you look at some of the newer areas that have, four builders and, tons of product being built. It'll slow down a little bit in those areas. It'll still increase, but it'll slow down. It won't increase as much. But that's where a lot of people, the affordability is better out there. So you still see a lot of people going out there. So I would think that if you're looking to buy and you're looking for lots more options and probably less price acceleration, I'd probably be looking at some of the areas I mentioned in suburbia with a lot of new home builders is probably where I'd be looking. The South and the West are going to increase faster than the East is going to increase. We're already seeing that. I mean, if you look out in the West, out in the Barhavens, the Canadas, you know, and to the South with the Findlay Creeks and the Riverside South, those prices are increasing faster than what we're seeing in the Orleans new areas. So, and I don't know what it is. Most cities, the West and the South, increase faster than the East, and I think that's what we're going to continue to see, over the next little bit as well.
Awesome. Yeah, the for whatever reason, Orleans always is like a step behind, I find, than the other suburban areas. Like you said, when you're looking to the west of Barrhaven and how quickly that's grown, and Stittsville, but the pricing in Barrhaven has always been a little bit kind of held down for whatever reason. We'll see if the light rail system kind of getting out there improves that. I think obviously with the 4 being not a great, hasn't been wide enough. They're widening it now. They're, LRT going in. So we'll see if that does increase demand out there or drive prices. But, I'm sure you see the same. Your office is in Orleans. You live in Orleans. It's
Well, I
for
have two
whatever reason, it's
offices.
always a little bit to rest.
Yeah, I have an office in Orleans and an office in Canada, and we probably do mainly because of the radio show. I probably do 50% of my business downtown West and 50% downtown East.
Mhm.
I'm a West End guy who moved out to the East End when I was done my pro hockey career, but we know the West End probably as good, if not better, than the East End now. So it's like we because of the radio show. I mean, we at one point we had more listings in like a suburbia out in like Arnprior or Pakenham than the apparent area specialist. Like you have to know the area. An area specialist now is kind of dead. Like you have to know every area. You have to market for every area. You have to have buyers and sellers for every area. And I think that's one thing that we've done very, very well is, and because of that, I have to be educated on every area. I have to know what's going on in Barrhaven as much as I have to know what's going on in Orleans and Arnprior and Riverside South, like downtown core. You have to know what's going on in this area because you get buyers from everywhere. So you have to know that. And that's important.
Paul Rushforth. Unbelievable. Paul, if people want to check out your radio show, check out your website, like where can people find you?
Okay, well, you can go to my website at just paulrushforth.com. All the information's on there. My podcast is on there from the radio show. The radio show, we're on every Saturday, CFRA 580 a.m., 11 o'clock, replay Sunday at 2 o'clock. So once again, just a very information-driven show, no selling BS. It's just all about information and education. So website's paulrushforth.com and CFRA 580 on the weekends at 11 o'clock.
I love it. We like to end our show here, Paul, with some agonizing dad jokes called the mood boosts.
Okay.
So I have a few here for you today, and you and Dave can be as embarrassed as you'd like. So here's number one. I got a job recently at the orange juice factory. They canned me because I couldn't concentrate.
That's a good one. Good one.
Number two, as you both know, I used to be a banker, but I lost interest.
Where do you get this stuff?
And then last but not least, I stayed up all night to see where the sun went, and then it dawned on me.
Oh, Jesus. Dave, you let him do this crap at the end of the show?
You should. My reaction is the same every week, just in bewilderment of what comes out of his mouth on these.
Yeah. You know,
I say them more just to see Dave's reaction, honestly. That's
Yeah,
that's half the fun for me.
yeah. Listen, I appreciate you guys having me on. You guys have been Goliaths in this industry for a long time, and I feel honored to be a part of this process and part of this show, and you including me in that. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks for
Appreciate
saying
it.
that, Paul.
Thanks for
We'd
coming
love
on.
to have you back on at some point. So if you're open to it, we'll certainly we'll give you a ring, and hopefully you can come back on and give us your insights again. That was great.
I was wondering what took you so long to get me on the first time.
For
You're a busy
sure. Well,
man.
thanks.
Too many conferences. We got trying to pin you down. Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you to everyone for listening. As always, new shows are released every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Make sure to follow us on our socials for exclusive shorts and content. And thanks as always to our sponsors, Guertin, Poirier, Avocates Lawyers, Big Insurance in Westboro, and CENTUM. Thank you everyone for listening. Thanks, Paul, for being here. We'll see you next week.
Guys.
This is